mountains being made in a very short period of time, because if you look at what so we have now 10 companies at least making the ventilators. And we say go ahead because, honestly, other countries really, they'll never be able to do it. It's a very complex piece of equipment, and it's big and expensive.
So do you believe as we approach this peak in a couple of weeks that there will be enough for the American populace?
I do think so, yes. I do think so. I think we're going to be in very good shape. And we had a great call today with the governors, and I actually said, I hope that the media is listening to this call, because it was a really good call, and that was randomly selected, largely Democrats and Republicans, and I think for the most part, they were saying thank you for doing a great job, and we discussed that at the end of the call. So it really, people are very happy with what we're doing. Now, the circumstances are so terrible because of what's going on, but I think they're very impressed by the federal government. I watched that beautiful ship floating in today into, weeks ahead of schedule, almost 4 weeks ahead of schedule into New York Harbor, Comfort. And I watched the Mercy floating in to Los Angeles almost a week ago. And they are stocked. They are really ready to go. They're stocked with both talent and tremendous amounts of equipment. And the Navy and everybody else involved, they got it ready so fast. It's just incredible what they can do. They've geared up. That's why, I am so impressed by the people involved. Mike and I were talking about it before, the level of genius to put it all together so quickly. This wasn't a month ago. Nobody ever heard of this. Nobody had any idea. The Mercy was being maintained. It was in maintenance for a month. And when they heard we needed it, and I was surprised, they said, "Sir, we're ready to go." I said, "What do you mean you're not going to be ready for 3 weeks?" "No, sir, we're all ready to go." It was incredible. So, and we've had many instances like this. I think the building of the hospital, 2,900 beds in a matter of days, a few days, is just incredible. Governor Cuomo was impressed, and Gavin Newsom was impressed by what we've been doing with Gavin and California and Los Angeles area in particular, but really San Francisco, all over California. When you look at what we're doing with Michigan, we're getting along very well with Michigan. It's a great place. We're sending a lot of things to Michigan because that's becoming a hotbed, especially a specific area, as you know. It's become very hot. It's become, could even at some point supersede, but it's got to be taken care of. So we're the relationship we have with the governors, I just wish you could, because we took a lot of calls from a lot of different states, and I wish you could have heard. Even a thing where, like, the governor of Ohio calls, where he has a company that does the sterilization, but they have a problem because it's not going quickly at the FDA. And I call up Steve, and Steve comes in, and he said, we'll get it done. And they checked it, and they got it done almost immediately. And originally they were approving it for 10,000 masks, and then it was supposed to be for 80, and they ultimately approved it for 120,000. It's a tremendous number. And I kept wondering, why aren't they sterilizing these masks? I assumed maybe you couldn't do it. But then I'd look at them, and they'd look like, it's not cloth. It's something that looks like it could be sterilized, and that's what they've done. And that's the machine that is over there, actually. They have a piece of the machine over there. I won't bother showing it to you. And this is incredible when you talk about 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and highly accurate, and not nearly as disturbing to do as the other tests. So we've just gotten better. We're doing things that nobody else ever thought of. Please.
The DMV has issued stay-at-home orders, but Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia took it pretty far. He issued a 70-day stay-at-home order. Is that constitutional, first off? And secondly, do you think it's warranted to go ahead and issue a 70-day guidance at this point?
Well, we're letting the governors do in their states pretty much what they want with our supervision, and they consult with us in all cases. Some go further than others, as you know. I could give you plenty of examples, but I'm not going to do that because we never want to be controversial. But some of the governors have taken it a step further, and people are questioning that. But look, staying at home with respect to what we're talking about doesn't bother me at all. People should be staying at home. That's what we want. OAN, please. OAN.
2,405 Americans have died from coronavirus in the last 60 days.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have 2,369 children who are killed by their mothers through elective abortions each day. That's 16,500 children killed every week.
Yeah.
2 states have suspended elective abortion to make more resources available for coronavirus cases. That's Texas and Ohio. Do you agree with states who are placing coronavirus victims above elective abortions, and should more states be doing the same?
Well, I think what we're doing is we're trying to, as a group, governors, and that's Republicans and Democrats, we're just working together to solve this problem. That's been what you're mentioning has been going on for a long time, and it's a sad event, a lot of sad events in this country. But what we're doing is now we're working on the virus, we're working on that hidden enemy, and I think we're doing a great job on, as good a job as you can possibly do. When Tony and Deborah came up with numbers yesterday to say that if we did nothing, you could lose 2.2, up to 2 point, maybe beyond, I don't know, maybe beyond, but 2.2 million people if we did nothing. And I can't tell you what the unfortunate final toll is going to be, but it's going to be a very small fraction of that. So we're doing an awfully good job, I think, with what we're doing. Please, go ahead.
Ohio?
Please.
Are you considering at all a nationwide stay-at-home order? I know there's a lot of states that have put them in place, but some haven't. I'm just wondering if you were considering some sort of broad stay-at-home order. And then I have a question for Dr. Birx, too, if you don't mind.
Well, we've talked about it. We, there are some parts of the country that are in far deeper trouble than others. There are other parts that, frankly, are not in trouble at all. So hopefully, we're going to be able to keep it that way by doing what we're doing. So we talked about quarantine, as you know, the other day. A group came to me and they wanted to do the quarantine, and I said, let's think about it, and we did, and we studied it, and by the time the evening came, it just was something that was very unwieldy, very tough to enforce, and something we didn't want to do. But we did advisory, and I think that's doing well. I mean, I look at the streets, you look at New York where I look down Fifth Avenue. Today, they were showing a shot of Fifth Avenue in sort of prime time, and there was almost nobody on Fifth Avenue. I've never seen that before. There was no car, there was no anything. So I think the people of this country have done an incredible job. If we do that, we will let you know, but it's pretty unlikely, I would think, at this time.
Can I ask a quick question for Dr. Birx
Yes.
also? So, Dr. Birx, if you don't mind, you had mentioned today that this model that predicts 100,000 deaths is if we do things almost perfectly. So I wanted to know, are we currently doing things almost perfectly, or are there more things we need to be doing to cap, to not exceed that 100,000, 200,000 model?
Please, come.
Thank you. I think that's a really great question. And tomorrow we'll go through all of the graphs and all the information that we took to the president for the decision. But and I just want to thank the data team that's working day and night to I usually get my data about 2 a.m. from them, and they assimilate all the data from all the states. And when you look at all of the states together, all of them are moving in exactly the same curves. And so that's why we really believe this needs to be federal guidance, so that every state understands that it may look like 2 cases today that become 20, that become 200, that become 2,000. And that's what we're trying to prevent. And I think states still have that opportunity, but they're going to have to do all of these these recommendations are recommendations that the globe is using. And so we really do recommend that every governor, every mayor looks very carefully and ensures that their communities are utilizing these guidance.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It is amazing. You look at Louisiana, and for a long time it was just staying at nothing. And then all of a sudden, I look one day and I see a lot and a lot and a lot, and then it explodes. And now we're working very carefully and very powerfully with them. We're building hospitals, so we're building a lot of different things for Louisiana. So it's very important. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Actually has warned that this could be seasonal cyclical virus. So, and maybe both of you could comment on this, and Dr. Birx as well. Are you prepared for this to strike again, say, in the fall? all the efforts that are taking place right now to contain this, to be proactive, and
Yeah.
you
We're
do.
prepared. I hope it doesn't happen. Doctor, would you like to say something about that? I hope it doesn't happen, but we're certainly prepared.
In fact, I would anticipate that that would actually happen because of the degree of transmissibility. However, if you come back in the fall, it will be a totally different ballgame of what happened when we first got hit with it in the beginning of this year. There will be several things that will be different. Our ability to go out and be able to test, identify, isolate, and contact trace will be orders of magnitude better than what it was just a couple of months ago. In addition, we have a number of clinical trials that are looking at a variety of therapeutic interventions. We hope one or more of them will be available. And importantly, as I mentioned to you many times at these briefings, is that we have a vaccine that's on track and multiple other candidates. So I would anticipate that, a year to a year and a half, we'd be able to do it under an emergency use. If we start seeing an efficacy signal, we may be able to even use a vaccine at the next season. So things are going to be very, very different. What we're going through now is going to be more than just lessons learned. It's going to be things that we have available to us that we did not have before.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Scott Gottlieb, your former FDA commissioner, wrote a roadmap for recovery after the
Very
coronavirus.
interesting. I saw it.
He suggests, the roadmap suggests that everybody wear a mask in public. Is that something that the task force thinks is a good idea?
Well, we haven't discussed it to that extent, but it's certainly something we could discuss. We're getting certainly the number of masks that you need. We are in the process of talking about things. I saw his suggestion on that, so we'll take a look at it for a period of time, not forever. I mean, we want our country back. We're not going to be wearing masks forever, but it could be for a short period of time. After we get back into gear, I could see something like that happening for a period of time. But I would hope it would be a very limited period of time. Doctors, they'll come back and say for the rest of our lives we have to wear masks.
The roadmap also talks about doing GPS for social distancing, maybe following people's phones, and hotels for isolation for people, giving them free hotel rooms. Are those ideas that you're looking at?
Well, the GPS, that's a very severe idea. I've been hearing about it, GPS. So what happens? A siren goes off if you get too close to somebody? That's pretty severe, but he's somebody, he was with me for a long time. They did a great job at FDA. So we're taking a look. I just received it a little while ago. He sent it over, so very good. Go ahead, let's give it a shot.
Sir, what do you say to Americans who are upset with you over the way you downplayed this crisis over the last couple of months? We have it very much under control in this country. The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. It's going to disappear. It's like a miracle. It will disappear. March 4th, we have a very small number of people in this country infected. March 10th, we're prepared. We're doing a great job with it. It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. What do you say to Americans who believe that you got this wrong?
And I do want them to stay calm, and we are doing a great job. If you look at those individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away, and it will go away, and we're going to have a great victory. And it's people like you and CNN that say things like that, it's why people just don't want to listen to CNN anymore. You could ask a normal question. The statements I made are, I want to keep the country calm. I don't want panic in the country. I could cause panic much better than even you. I would make you look like a minor league player. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to have our country be calm and strong and fight and win. And it will go away. And it is incredible, the job that all of these people are doing, putting them all together, the job that they're doing. I am very proud of the job they're doing, that Mike Pence is doing, that the task force has done, that Honeywell and Procter & Gamble and Mike and all of these people have done. I'm very proud. It's almost a miracle, and it is, the way it's all come together. And instead of asking a nasty, snarky question like that, you should ask a real question. And other than that, I'm going to go to somebody else. Please, go ahead, please.
You expressed some concern in the past that medical supplies were going out the back door and that perhaps some hospitals were doing things worse
Well, I
than hoarding.
expressed what was told to me by a tremendous power in the business. He said that at a New York hospital, for a long period of time, he was giving 10,000, maybe maximum 20,000 masks over a short time, and all of a sudden he's giving 300,000. And I said, no matter how bad this is, could that be possible? He said, no. So there's only a couple of things that could happen. Is it going out the back door? And I've reported it to the city and let the city take a look at it. But when you go from 10,000 masks to 300,000 masks, Mike, over the same period of time, there's something going on. Now, I'm not making any charges, but when everyone's looking for masks, and by the way, that's another thing, we're making a lot of masks, and the sterilization process is going to save a lot of time and a lot of masks. But when you have the biggest distributor of product that distributes to many of the big hospitals and hospital chains, and he brings up a statistic like that, and I know you're trying to make a big deal out of it, but you shouldn't be. You should actually go over to the hospital and find out why. You shouldn't be asking me. I'm just saying that's the way it is. You should go over there as a great reporter. I have no idea who you are, but that's okay. You should go over there, go to the hospital, and find out how come you used to get 10,000 masks and you had a full hospital. New York City, always full. And how come now you have 300,000 masks, despite the virus and all, you have three? How do you go from 10 to 300,000? And this is very serious stuff. I mean, I could see from 10 to 20 or from 10 to 40 or 50 or something. But how do you go from 10 to 300,000 masks? So what I think you should do is I'm sure you're a wonderful investigative reporter. You should go to the hospital and find out why. Okay, yeah.
Asking your DOJ to look into it, sir?
Steve, please. Well, it's so bad for the economy, but the economy is number 2 on my list. First, I want to save a lot of lives. We're going to get the economy back. I think the economy is going to come back very fast. Steve's just asking about the economy. What's it like? We basically shut down our country. And we did that in order to keep people separated, keep people apart. They're not working in offices. They're not in airplanes together. You know, we really shut it down. And, you know, 150, 151 other countries are pretty much shut down. But here we had the greatest economy in the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had to go from doing a great job for 3 years to shutting it down. But you know what? We're going to build it up, and we're going to build it up rapidly. And I think in the end we'll be stronger for it. We learned a lot. We learned a lot. And I have to say, we've had great relationships with a lot of countries. China sent us some stuff, which was terrific. Russia sent us a very, very large plane load of things, medical equipment, which was very nice. Other countries sent us things that I was very surprised at, very happily surprised. We learned a lot. We're learning a lot. And we're also learning that the concept of borders is very important, Steve. It's very important. Having borders is very, very important. But we have done an incredible job. The economy is going to come back. My focus is saving lives. That's the only focus I can have. We're going to bring the economy back, and we'll bring it back fast. Yeah, please.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Mr. President.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've said several times that the United States has ramped up testing. Just talk a little quicker or a little louder. Mr. President, you said several times that the United States has ramped up testing, but the United States is still not testing per capita as many people as other countries like South Korea. Why is that, and when do you think that number will be on par with other countries?
Yeah, well,
and
it's very much on par. Look, per capita, we have areas of country that's very hard. I know South Korea better than anybody. It's a very tight. Do you know how many people are in Seoul? Do you know how big the city of Seoul is? 38 million people. That's bigger than anything we have. 38 million people, all tightly wound together. We have vast farmlands. We have vast areas where they don't have much of a problem. In some cases, they have no problem whatsoever. We have done more tests. I didn't talk about per capita. We have done more tests by far than any country in the world, by far. Our testing is also better than any country in the world. And when you look at that, as simple as that looks, that's something that's a game changer. And every country wants that, every country. So rather than asking a question like that, you should congratulate the people that have done this testing, because this administration inherited a broken system, a system that was obsolete, a system that didn't work. It was okay for a tiny, small group of people, but once you got beyond that, it didn't work. We have built an incredible system to the fact where we have now done more tests than any other country in the world, and now the technology is really booming. I just spoke to, I spoke to a lot. I'm not going to even mention. I spoke to a number of different testing companies today, and the job that they've done and the job that they're doing is incredible. But when Abbott comes out and does this so quickly, it's really unreal. In fact, one company I have to say that stands out in the job, and I think I can say this, I don't want to insult anybody else, but Roche. Roche has been incredible in the testing job they've done, and they're ramping it up exponentially. It's up, 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 up. And you should be saying congratulations instead of asking a really snarky question, because I know exactly what you mean by that. You should be saying, congratulations to the men and women who have done this job, who have inherited a broken testing system and who have made it great. And if you don't say it, I'll say it. I want to congratulate all of the people. You have done a fantastic job, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yay. Hey, what's up, Phantom? I don't even know yet. I'll know by later on this evening. They close them in your area? Well, that's gonna be a cold thing if they did that, man. So yeah, that was TreeTvRadio, your boy, addressing the nation. The Rona virus task force press briefing.
We were just attacked. That's right, about
And I look around at my nursing colleagues, I look around at everybody in the hospital doing every job, and I can't help thinking to myself that maybe now is our moment. Now is our moment to rise above this terrible disaster. And what I would say to you is if we pull together like we have pulled together in the hospital, we can and we will rise above this.
It's going to be a challenge. These poor people are so amazingly ill. This virus, this tiny virus, is literally ominous. It's crazy. So we'll see what tomorrow holds.
New York City hospitals and funeral homes just overwhelmed with coronavirus cases. Sky News correspondent Cordelia Lynch spoke to people who have lost members of their family and to those organizing their burials.
Look at that. You felt at home?
Gerard Neufeld Funeral Home is a family-run business.
Yes, we're open. How can I help you?
And it's overwhelmed. The bodies of COVID-19 victims,
Small groups, yes.
keep coming.
If you just give me a call to let me know when you're coming, because we are a little busy and I want to make sure somebody is here to sit down and speak with you properly.
The caskets are closed, the chairs largely bereft of mourners, but the work doesn't stop.
Demand is just, unfortunately, a lot of deaths all at the same time. So we're trying to manage services for all the families in a proper way, whatever they want to do. So, and it's just a lot of families all at the same time. So we're trying to get fit in schedules, trying to keep track of who's, which day, which family's going to go, and go from there.
Just down the road is Elmhurst Hospital, the centre of the outbreak, where doctors say the situation is apocalyptic.
Crazy. I mean, people are unfortunately passing away in big numbers. And because they live in this area and I'm the only funeral home left in this area, they're coming to me. So I'm trying to accommodate them best I can. So.
And every day, more and more bodies come.
Yes. I mean, we left the office last night, and I think we had about 12 services or so scheduled. And shortly after I left the office, within 2 hours, I had 3 more services. And then this morning, as soon as we came in, we put on 3 or 4 more services. So that's what's happening, and it's only 12 o'clock.
Robert Lugo has just lost his grandmother, Anna. Isolated in her suffering, her family now robbed of the chance to grieve together.
But my grandmother died alone. That was not my grandma. She died alone. We didn't even get to say bye to her. And I understand that's part of the death process. But she was there. She was in the hospital. She was feet away. We couldn't even see her. We couldn't talk to her. We couldn't even give her that boost of morale to say, hey, you're going to come out of this, or we need you to come out of this. There was nothing.
What would you say to those people who don't think coronavirus is a serious threat?
If you don't think that it's a serious threat, here I am. I lost my grandmother in the midst of less than a week.
Her family had just celebrated her 80th birthday. They call her the glue. Now they too are sick.
Because she was exposed to the virus, they also became exposed to the virus. And half of our family members right now are in quarantine because they tested positive.
With collective mourning forbidden and traditional rituals removed, death is marked by a drive-through.
The crematories really aren't letting anybody in. The cemeteries are limiting it, for the most part, to people staying in their cars and just watching the burial from the graveside.
Joe now negotiates at the gates, carrying candles for the families that can't.
Sometimes when it's so brief, it almost leaves them still feeling hollow, like, what just happened. They don't have enough time to process it, and it's heartbreaking. It's really sad.
Joe and his father are vulnerable handling infected bodies, but they keep going, determined to offer dignity to those who left this world without a hand to hold.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news. This is all I've got left.
Good afternoon from the Spin Room.
It's news made for your streaming world. NBC News Now.
If it's digging in on the issues.
Let's talk about money and politics.
If it's asking the questions you want to ask. How do you reassure those supporters that you will sustain this?
Just watch me.
If it's navigating the winding road to the White House. And if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Need your true crime fix on the go? Dateline episodes are available as podcasts. Mysteries with a twist from the True Crime Original. Wow. Listen to Dateline wherever you get your podcasts.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news. This is all I've got left.
Who brought more to the caucuses?
It's news made for your streaming world. Live weekdays, 3 to 11 p.m. Eastern.
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, covering coronavirus with facts over fear.
How do we know who belongs in isolation? What should we be conscious of? What's being worked on today?
At a time of national crisis, turn to the most trusted TV news anchor in America.
Hey everyone, I'm Allison Marth. You're watching NBC News Now from my living room. A big thank you to Gotti Schwartz, who took over last week while we were getting my home studio set up. It's our first day with it going, so let's hope things go smoothly. I got my Monday sweater on, so at least we know what day it is, because I know that's been a little bit of an issue with these work from home days. We got a lot of information for you. I know you have questions and concerns. We're going to try to cover everything we can and get through this coronavirus pandemic together. So let's head over to NBC News Now correspondent Alexa Lioto. She has the latest coronavirus headlines from NBCnews.com. Give us an update.
Hey, Allison, good to see you and glad you're back. Lots of headlines today. The U.S. Navy hospital ship Comfort docking in Manhattan this morning to help bolster medical capacity for the city as it continues to grapple with the coronavirus pandemic. The floating hospital has the capacity for 1,000 beds and 12 operation rooms and will be ready to take patients within 24 hours. That's according to our local affiliate here, NBC New York. Now, New York is currently considered the epicenter of the pandemic in the United States, but the entire country is, of course, facing the crisis. This morning, Dr. Deborah Birx, the White House coronavirus response coordinator, had this to say.
If we do things together well, almost perfectly, we could get in the range of 100,000 to 200,000 fatalities.
And from NBC News' tech editor Jason Abruzzi's, Macy's is furloughing the majority of its 130,000 person workforce as the coronavirus pandemic takes a toll on American businesses. The company said in a statement that they, quote, have lost the majority of their sales due to store closures, and that across Macy's, Bloomingdale's, and Blue Mercury brands, the company will be moving to the, quote, absolute minimum workforce to maintain basic operations. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin calling into Fox Business today to say the economy should be back on track by June.
You talked about the economy coming roaring back. You hold with that? We come roaring back after June 1st?
I think so. I think we're going to have a rough quarter because we've shut down major parts of the economy. But our economy was in great shape. Our economy was the economy that was really growing and leading the world.
Mnuchin adding the Trump administration would be providing 8 weeks of payroll to small businesses, which totals around $350 billion. That's according to NBC's Lucy Bailey. And some new numbers released just earlier from Louisiana, a surge in coronavirus cases now totaling over 4,000 statewide. That's a jump of 485 cases from yesterday. And New Orleans specifically seeing a rise of 130 new cases, bringing the total to 1,480. That's from NBC News' Blaine Alexander. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announcing today he'll be signing a safer at home executive order for 4 counties in South Florida as cases in the state near or surpass 5,000, according to the latest numbers from Florida's health department. The governor has made news recently for not mandating a statewide stay-at-home order, as other states across the country have implemented. And Allison, those are the headlines for this hour. We'll be updating you with more.
Some unbelievable headlines. Thank you so much. And forgive me for not saying your first name. We got a couple devices here I have to shut off before we get into our next hour. Of course, you could check out our live blog, nbcnews.com/coronavirus. We'll have plenty more updates for you there. 200,000 Americans could die from the coronavirus. That is according to Dr. Anthony Fauci. Take a listen.
I mean, looking at what we're seeing now, you know, I would say between 100 and 200,000 cases, but I don't want to be held to that because it's deaths. I mean, we're going to have millions of cases.
Joining me now, Dr. Nahid Bedelia, infectious disease physician and medical director of the Special Pathogens Unit at Boston University School of Medicine. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
This morning on the Today Show, Dr. Deborah Birx echoed Dr. Fauci, saying that even if we take aggressive measures, the U.S. could see 200,000 deaths from the coronavirus. Those are just staggering numbers. Do you agree with them?
I do. You know, and there's a study at the end of last week from the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington that a lot of people think took a pretty, positive perspective, is that if we all follow the social distancing, the isolating the cases who get sick, and we test like crazy, then we might be in that number of 100,000 to 200,000. But even then, when we do that, that study basically showed that most states are going to fall short for the needs that they have for hospital beds, about 61,000 hospital beds, short of what they already have, and about 15,000 ICU beds short of what they already have, which is where this flattening the curve, this idea that we don't want everybody to get sick together comes in. As we project out to looking at those cases.
President Trump said this morning that he expects the U.S. will hit its coronavirus peak in about 2 weeks. Listen to this.
Around Easter, that's going to be your spike. That's going to be the highest point, we think, and then it's going to start coming down from there. That will be a day of celebration, and we just want to do it right. So we picked the end of April, the last day, April 30th.
What do you make of that? Do you think that we will hit that peak around mid-April? Is there a way to tell?
I think that it's much more complicated than that, right? Because there's no one peak. Every state is going to hit a peak at a different time, depending on what their outbreak looks like and how much testing is being done. We do know that physical distancing works. There's a study from Northeastern and Oxford that showed that, look at China's number. When they put this into place, it does work. But it's not that we hit a peak and then everything is done. It's that we hit a peak and you have a plateau where you want fewer number of people. The acceleration of cases decreases. And given that, I think that's the message that we need to send, is that the cases will continue. It's just that we won't be accelerating if we follow all the guidance that we're sort of looking at. But all the states, everybody has to do that together.
So yesterday, President Trump extended the national social distancing guidelines to April 30th. Given what you've just said about not being really sure about the peak and just that a peak could happen in different states at different times, is that April 30th extension long enough, or do you think it might need to be later than that?
I think it's going to be a different reality for every single state. And that's why ensuring that everybody starts out at a similar place right now with the same kind of restrictions. If we could do this perfectly, the whole country go into isolation, go into quarantine, and do the social distancing and use that as a temporizing measure, right? It's not like somehow the virus will magically disappear, because what we need to do in that interim is increase our testing, fight everybody who's sick, improve our hospitals so they can handle this capacity, If we do that, we come closer to that. But I think most people think that the number is probably going to be more than just another 2 weeks. I think the reality is this may go on for a couple of months at different frequency of cases, at different acceleration of the number of new cases that we see.
We know we need to be socially distancing right now, but when we eventually do come out of this, is there a right and a wrong way to ease out of social distancing? Do you just go back to life as normal, or do you sort of need to work your way back out into the regular world?
I think it's going to be a while before we unlearn the lessons that we've learned, in this. Everybody, the whole world is holding their breath with China as it's, easing its guidance on social distancing. And they're doing it in, again, a graded manner for exactly the reasons that you talked about, because you don't want to, the minute you let down the guard, you don't want to see that spike of cases again.
Right.
But I think the lessons around, maintaining good hand hygiene and being home when we're sick are things that probably I think are going to be ingrained in our culture, I hope, for a while, because those are the measures that will help us with the coronavirus if it returns in the fall, if with a flu season that occurs next year, that happens every year. All those things I think are going to be something that we take away from this.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be a while before we get out of these good hand washing habits. I think a lot of folks are really doing that as often as possible. And it's something that we've all become very accustomed to. Let me ask you this. The FDA approved a coronavirus test that can get results in less than 15 minutes. Could that help us get a handle on this outbreak?
The FDA actually was very busy at the end of last week and over the weekend. So aside from a whole slew of emergency use authorizations, so the permission to use these tests that look promising, they also released a whole number of guidance around, how do you decontaminate the masks that healthcare workers are using, the N95s and others in the hospital setting?
Yeah.
How do we clean them in between uses? And so the test itself is promising because it's basically taking, again, the same type of samples from the person's body and running it at a higher speed at 15 minutes and doing a lot more tests together. The real test of this will be when it gets rolled out in the clinical setting to see if it has the same type of accuracy that they've seen when they're looking at it in the laboratory with clinical samples that they had in-house. And so the kind of factors that matter there are, how well are people collecting the samples? How well are laboratories able to adopt the procedures to get the sensitivity and specificity, which is the ability of the test to actually detect a disease when it exists, and then to actually detect it compared to other diseases that might be present in the person. And so a little bit to go. Cautious optimism on the test is going to make a huge difference in identifying people. But the other things that FDA has done, including the decontamination of masks, is also going to have a huge role in improving healthcare worker capacity and hospital capacity in taking care of these patients.
Yeah, you just mentioned a couple of times the new restrictions or the loosening of restrictions on sterilizing masks. What changes did the FDA make? You mentioned you think that'll be helpful?
Yeah, so a few different ones. One thing that they did was, as you know, the supply chains for respirator masks, the masks that we use in the hospital setting, in patients particularly that we might be doing procedures in which the virus may be in the room for a longer period of time, those we've run out of a lot of supplies, right? And so what they did is, one, they said, what are the manufacturers that are foreign that hit the same level of technical specifications that you could buy from? So they laid out a guidance on how hospitals and others can acquire those tests. The second is they said, you have these N95s. There are papers out there that have been around for a while, including one by Battelle, a study the company Battelle did that looked at a technology that we use in the hospital all the time to actually decontaminate other medical equipment, such as vaporized hydrogen peroxide. And so what they did was they provided an emergency use authorization to Battelle, and hopefully it's the opening of others to be able to do the same, which is using this technology to show that you can, A, remove the virus from the mask in between use, and two, the mask itself does not lose its integrity, and so it's safe for healthcare workers to keep using it. So here's the awesome thing. With this technology, you could use the same mask as long as it's not damaged during use 20 times. So you're basically increasing the supply of masks by 20 times if this procedure works.
We've been talking about the masks that medical professionals have been using. I know the advice for the average person has been not to purchase and use masks because you're taking them away from healthcare workers who need them. Your advice for people who are trying to go out, go to the grocery store when they need to, how can they do those kinds of things and stay safe? Is there a smart way to either use gloves or hand sanitizers or wipes that can just help people, do the basic things that they absolutely have to and get back home as safely as possible?
Thanks, Alison. So important thing to sort of step back on this is how is this disease transmitted, right? It's in the fluid that's in the cough and the sneeze of someone who's sick. And the worst way to get exposed is to be around someone and they actually cough or sneeze on you because you get the virus. And then it gets transmitted into your ears, your nose, your nose, your mouth, your eyes. And so, but the other way that people get infected is when someone's sick and they leave a little bit of the virus in the fluid that's coming from their cough and sneezing on the surface, and then you touch it. So it doesn't go through your hands. It's that you're taking your hands and then touching your face with that. And so the great, I think a great guide to do this is good hand hygiene always works. If you're doing some work such as actually taking care of someone who's sick at home, that's when gloves are really helpful because you might come into contact with a lot of those things that are dirty around the house. When you're outside, the biggest thing is, don't go outside if you're sick. If you can get help, ask others to get the things that you need because you don't want to contribute to potentially, putting this virus out there that others may be exposed to. But the other is when you're staying away from people who might be sick in the public, the use of masks is, in the ideal setting, if used perfectly, the best use of it is when you're sick, putting it on so you don't make other people sick. But the difference is that when people use masks, I've seen them use it and they use their hands to sort of adjust their mask. And you're kind of defeating the purpose here when you're taking your hands and potentially touching your face, which is what you don't want to do. And so the big lesson here is that the first step is hand hygiene and cleaning surfaces, and then isolating when you're sick and using a mask when you're sick. If you know how to use the mask properly, potentially there could be some benefit, but really it's when you're sick that it plays the biggest role.
All right, Dr. Bedelia, thank you so much for all of your great advice. We will try to keep up the hand hygiene, cleaning surfaces, and not touching our faces. I appreciate all the great advice. Amazon workers at a New York City warehouse walked off the job today. They're protesting how the companies handled the coronavirus outbreak. They say the safety protocols in place aren't enough to protect them. NBC News business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent joins me now. And Joe, great to have you with us. What do these Amazon workers want? What are they asking for today?
They say that they're asking for the basics. They know that one person has tested positive for COVID-19, so they believe that there are other cases, and they don't believe they have enough personal protective equipment. And we're talking about the masks and the gloves that they want. There's also been discussion of social distancing and whether or not the adequate steps have been taken on that front. So that's the Staten Island case. We're also hearing of a new petition that's being circulated here in Southern California in the Inland Empire at some of the fulfillment centers here. You may not know this, but this area of Southern California has the largest concentration of Amazon fulfillment center, those warehouses, where all of the orders are processed. So there are similar grievances and concerns here on the ground. But I do want to point out that Amazon did respond, and they told us that they believe that these accusations are unfounded. They call their employees heroes fighting for their communities, and they do believe they're providing enough gear.
Joe, we know Amazon isn't the only company that's facing some backlash right now. Instacart employees planned an emergency walk-off today also. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I just got off the phone with one of the organizers, an Instacart shopper who's been shopping for Instacart for about 5 years. Their concern is also their own health. As they go into these grocery stores, what is it like to go in? How crowded it is? They're not being provided the sanitizer and the hazard pay and the sick pay that they believe they deserve as they serve on the front lines, as so many people are homebound and unable to do groceries. Of course, Instacart is getting a huge surge in orders, the same way Amazon has as well. So Instacart, since we started reporting on this last week, they did say they will be providing a higher default level for tips and some bonus pay. And then after increased pressure over the weekend, they said they're sourcing and getting their own hand sanitizer out to their shoppers. But the Instacart shopper that I spoke to in Chicago, Matthew Tellis, he says that, look, this is just not enough. It's part of a larger systemic problem of having these workers out during coronavirus, risking their lives, trying to deliver what basics so many people need.
Yeah, Joe, they've just been doing incredible work, getting folks the things that they need, putting their own lives in danger to make sure that people have supplies, food, all the things they need in their homes during this crazy time. We are so grateful for all of the work that they are doing, and thankful to you so much for your reporting today. Help has arrived in New York City, where right now there are more than 36,000 coronavirus cases. The USNS Comfort pulled into port this morning. It's here to primarily help hospitals that are just overwhelmed with patients. Here's New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio moments after the ship docked.
It's a very emotional moment. I went up on the roof here to watch the Comfort come in, and I had this incredible feeling of peace, actually, that help was finally coming, that we were not alone. So I'm going to keep calling the president. I'm going to keep appealing to him to get us all the help we need for these really tough weeks. And then again, we will turn around and help everyone else in this country right after.
Rahima Ellis is at the pier in New York City where the USNS Comfort is docked. Rahima, who will be treated on this ship?
Oh, this ship is to help ease the burden at our brick and mortar hospitals, if you will, who can now focus on COVID-19 patients. The people who are coming here will have other problems health-wise, from minor to critical issues. All kinds of things continue to happen in the city beyond the COVID-19, but that and COVID-19 going on in a hospital has just brought them to the brink of disaster. So the mayor and the governor have been pleading for more facilities, more beds to come through. This one is a 1,000-bed facility, which will concentrate on that. So in addition to this, as you know, the Javits Center is going to be opening this week. That's another 1,000 beds of a field hospital. And then they have 68 beds that are opening up this week in, of all places, iconic Central Park, in an effort, again, to ease the burden that's going on at our hospitals around the area. I should tell you this, Allison, just a few minutes ago, there was a large group of people who were gathered here to get a look at this ship. It is a comforting sight to see the USNS Comfort here. But police are saying people gathering here is exactly what they don't want to happen. I heard you in the segment before talking about whether or not social distancing is working. So a police officer in his car over the loudspeaker just said a moment ago, this is not a tourist attraction. You have to move along, because people were gathered too close together. That's one of the biggest things that both the mayor and the governor have been talking about, that while they are starting to see that the rate of doubling of cases is easing, one of the biggest concerns is making certain that people abide by the warnings, if you will, not to be too close together. Social distancing is the way that they can hopefully lower the intensity of the spread of this coronavirus. Even here in New York, Allison, what they've gone so far to do is they are removing the basketball hoops from some of the playgrounds in New York, because people have been going out on very nice days, unlike today, and having pickup basketball games, running into each other, falling into each other, grabbing on each other, exactly what health officials say we should not do.
Yeah, when the weather's nice in the city, you see a lot of folks out there, whether it's on the West Side Highway, in the parks along the river, sometimes getting just a little bit too close. I'd like to ask you one more question about this naval ship. This is not the first time the Comfort has been sent to New York City. Can you tell us when it was here before?
The last time was for 9/11. At that point, it was expected that it might need to provide some assistance for those who might have been injured when those planes crashed into the Twin Towers. But unfortunately, nearly 3,000 people died. And what this ship was then turned into was really a comfort ship for those health workers and first responders who found themselves overwhelmed with the task at hand. And they needed not only a place of respite, but also a place where they could come for some mental health counseling, if you will. And this ship provided that comfort for people back then, as it is providing assistance and comfort for people now. It's supposed to be up and running, they say, within the next 24 hours. Allison?
The name of that ship, so appropriate. Thank you so much, Rahima. And a quick programming note for you. Tomorrow, join Savannah Guthrie, Hoda Kotb, and the NBC News team for a live primetime special on the coronavirus pandemic. Our team of correspondents around the world will be providing critical, real-time information. Our experts will answer your questions about the coronavirus. That's tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on NBC, MSNBC, and right here on NBC News Now. All right, let's go over now to Leanne Caldwell. She has the latest on the stimulus package from Capitol Hill. And Leanne, President Trump pushed back his social distancing guidelines at least until April 30th. That means the economy is going to probably continue to take a hit for at least another month. What's Congress working on now to counter that?
Yeah, Allison, Congress is under no impression that they are done with trying to help this economy. They know that the peak is still down the road and a lot more needs to be done. So what's happening on the Hill right now, while members are all back in their districts, most of them anyway, in the House and the Senate, their aides, and they're still talking on the phone, trying to come up with what a phase 4 is going to look like. I'm told by sources that they're starting those discussions now. They actually started them last week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has been pretty public with what she wants in the phase 4 of this bill. That includes additional money for states. We heard Governor Cuomo over the past week talking about how what they got in the phase 3 portion was not nearly enough. And so Pelosi agrees with that. She says states are going to need a lot more to deal with this crisis. In addition, she is talking a lot about beefed up paid family medical leave, and more things to help workers. She thinks that the corporations and the big businesses with their $500 billion at least of loans that they're expected to get got plenty in this bill. And so she's looking at more help for individuals and small businesses, Allison.
Leanne, we've heard quite a bit from Pelosi, as you've said. Does that mean the House is taking the lead on this next bill?
What Pelosi has said is that she thinks that the four corners should do that. And I do that in quotes because that means Pelosi, the Republican House Leader McCarthy, the Senate Democratic Leader Schumer, and then, of course, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. It's unclear at this point. Of course, the House and the Senate, they always battle with each other, and they would want to be the lead writers in these sorts of legislation.